Hi, everyone. My name is Pat Mouye, and I'm the Study Abroad Coordinator in the UL Lafayette Study Abroad Programs Office, which is a part of the Division of Global Engagement. Today, we are recording a session for our Study Abroad program in London, England in the summer of 2022. And with me to share information are those faculty members who are wanting to recruit and share with you their experiences about teaching abroad and just having an opportunity for them to for you to take classes with them during this program. So I'm going to start off by asking each of the faculty members to share with you who they are, what department, and their experiences abroad at this point in time. So I'm going to get started with Dr. David Squires.
Hi all, my name is David Squires. I'm a professor in the English department, where I teach mostly American literature in the 20th century. For London, I'll be teaching or offering two courses. One is English 342. That's in the course catalog, it's modern drama. We're going to teach it as a performance studies class, thinking about theater for sure, but also performance way beyond that, including public performances. So we'll have a great opportunity to go see some like West End theater. I hope we'll go to the Globe Theater, which is Shakespeare's recreated theater, see a modern performance of Shakespeare. But we'll also do things like go see some of the street performers as well. So that'll be a lot of fun. And the other course is English 370, special topics. In this case will be London's museums and libraries. So we'll go see a lot of famous museums, like the Tate Modern, a great art museum, but then some other smaller ones like the Museum of Branding and Marketing or the Victorian Toy Museum, which is a lot of fun. So a lot of different opportunities to see stuff at the grand scale of London and also some of the sort of off the main corridor kind of stuff as well.
And Dr. Squires, how long have you been with the university now?
Oh, yeah, thank you. I started in 2017, so
Okay.
4 full years, headed into my 5th year.
And then you've taught abroad, and did you go as a student as well?
So when I was in high school, I lived in Italy for a year. My father was in the Navy, so I got a year abroad that way. After college, I spent almost a year in Mexico, so I traveled that way. But I didn't ever do study abroad until teaching in 2019 in London with a lot of the same folks here. We had a great time, and I'm looking forward to get back. Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you, Dr. Squires. Dr. Bro, can you share with us who you are, your department, and your experiences abroad?
Yes, so I'm Brooke Bro. I'm an assistant professor in the psychology department, and I've been with UL for 8 years. I have not really traveled that much outside of the US, but I had friends in college who participated in study abroad, but I did not, and I regretted not going for it. So I'm trying to make up for lost time. And in the summer of 2019, I taught in England and had such a good time. I'm really excited to do it again.
Awesome. Okay, Dr. Rausch, if you could share with us a little bit about yourself.
Sure. Hi, my name is Jonathan Rausch. I am an assistant professor in mechanical engineering. I'm also the associate director of our Institute of Materials Research and Innovation. I've been with UL now for 10 years. I had the opportunity to teach in this program in 2019. Had a great time, looking forward to doing it again. Previous to that, I've had the opportunity to teach some smaller workshops in Belgium, Brazil, and France, and just kind of travel recreationally when the opportunity presents itself. My primary research interests have to do with materials and energy, and you'll see that those end up being some of the primary themes of our courses.
Awesome. Okay, Mr. Tansel, if you could share with us a little bit about yourself.
Hello, my name is James Tansel. I'm an instructor of studio art in the visual arts department. I've been teaching as a full-time instructor for the past 3 years, and I've been at UL since 2006 as an adjunct instructor. This will be my first time teaching overseas, but I'm half German. I've been spending most of my life going overseas and traveling and getting young people to get exposed to Europe and experiencing a different lifestyle, different cultures has always been very important to share with students. And also art is a good way to kind of communicate with everybody. And that'll be a big part of what I'll be doing in England.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Mr. Tansel. I want to share one other thing. Dr. Wesley Bradford will also be a faculty member that will be recruiting for our England program. He was not able to attend this particular recording for today because his schedule didn't allow for it, but he will be meeting with me at a later time, and that information will be added at the conclusion of this particular video. So right now, I'm going to go ahead and share my screen with you all that are watching the video at this time. So if you could give me a moment just to do that. All righty. So as I've mentioned, oh wait, no, I need to, that's not what I wanted to do. This is what I need to do. Oh, there we go. So I'm going to share with you just a little bit of information about our programs as a whole. I've shared with you that this particular session is going to be predominantly information about England, but I do want to share with you a little bit about our programs as a whole. We do have 6 programs with our study of our faculty-led programs. That is a program in Costa Rica, naturally the one here in England, and then both France and Italy are 6-week programs that take place in the summer along with England. The Costa Rica program is a summer intersession program, and each of these programs will have recordings on our website from all of the faculty that are planning to participate and recruit for these programs. We are excited to share that we will have 2 new programs this coming year in the summer of 2022. One in Tokyo, Japan, which will be a 2-week program, but it'll be 1 week here in Lafayette and 2 weeks in Japan, very similar to this England program. And then we also are going to have another program in Rabat, Morocco, which is going to be predominantly an Arabic language program. And again, each of these will have faculty sessions that we do have faculty sessions that are on the website that you can find out information from the faculty that will be teaching. For our London program, I do have some information that's just kind of generic at this point in time until all of it is finalized, but it usually does take place in the month of May. We do have an approximation cost of about $4,000. We can get into that a little bit later, but right now I'm still working out all of the specifics with the companies that we work with. You can earn up to 6 credit hours for the England program. You're housed in hotels. And as you can see from this final bullet, there are various locations that you will be visiting while you're there. I'm not going to go into specifics because I'm going to leave that up to the faculty on how they're going to incorporate their coursework into these different locations. And as I did mention, I believe earlier that London is a 3-week program. So right now, what I'd like to do is I'm going to be turning it over to the faculty once again. And in this case, I think I'm just going to kind of follow along with the listing that I have here. But what I'm going to ask of the faculty is just to share with you all just specifics about the courses, about the sites that the students will visit, where will the classes take place, what might a typical day consist of, and of course, how should our students prepare for the excursions in reference to, attire, drinking, snacks, and anything that might pertain to the needs of the visits that they're going to be making. So I'm going to ask each of the faculty members to do that. So I'll start off with Dr. Rausch in engineering, and of course, his courses are listed here. So Dr. Rausch, if you could take over.
Yes, thank you. And please feel free to let me know if I forget to mention some of those details. But so I'll start off by saying these courses were kind of crafted with the overall goal of making you, the student, a more competitive engineer in the workplace. So my goal is for you to leave this experience and have something that you can carry with you and really help you advance yourself as a career engineer. The general theme, though, is that we will be situated in really what you could consider a birthplace of the modern engineering profession. And this was born out of the fact that the Industrial Revolution really kind of took off here, where we'll be. in England. And out of that rapid advancement, there was an explosion of technology, and then so the needs of the public, which include both safety and understanding, really born about the need to have a well-framed engineering profession. And so what the two courses will do is the course which involves the evolution of engineering design. We'll start with kind of that time frame and see how design perspective has changed and evolved up to modern times. And with that, we'll be visiting places and sites that help us to understand that process. Leading up to really, I see the second course as kind of a continuation, which is energy systems and sustainability. And so sustainability engineering being really kind of a most modern approach to engineering design. And so the courses are kind of divided up thematically. So in terms of the energy systems course, we're going to look at primarily sustainable energy systems, whether it be solar or wind or bio. And we will go and visit places that are establishments that use those technologies and to help us understand what we learn in the classroom. Likewise, with our engineering design course, it will be thematically divided up into whether it's transportation or manufacturing or communications, and we'll visit sites. And really, we want to use the area as our classroom in order to really enhance the experience, kind of drive home the principles, and initiate more curiosity and discussion. And so a typical day would be where we will meet right after breakfast in a somewhere close by our hotel. Our last trip, we utilized University College London, which is a great resource, and for about 45 minutes or an hour, talk about what we've saw previously, what we're going to see for the day, and then we'll be out on the town, so to speak. And so we'd like to incorporate 2 visits a day, two activities, a morning activity and afternoon activity. Typically, it could be one related to our engineering courses, and then maybe another one that's more of a cultural activity. We like to finish up before dinner, so the students can take that opportunity to kind of explore on themselves, explore on their own, be out in the town and kind of stretch their legs a little bit. In terms of specific places we may visit, so again, the places are kind of matched to those themes. It could be somewhere like the Science Museum of London, which really encapsulates the Industrial Revolution. It could be somewhere like the Royal Institution that did a lot of the research in electromagnetism, or the Royal Observatory, or a more modern site like the Thames Barrier, which handles flood control for the city, or an Air and Space Museum. So a lot of range there. Some of the students' favorite visits range from going out to Cambridge, which we hope to do, or plan to do, where it's a little more of the countryside, so out of the hustle bustle of the city, where you can see some of the places and areas that are relative both to technology and the engineers that work there. So some of the famous scientists you hear about in class all the time. To a place like Stonehenge, which has both a cultural and really an engineering component, which we'll talk about as well. Other than that, the types of work you can be expected to do. So we will have traditional lecture. We will have interactive discussion. I will ask the students to conduct some engineering analysis. So for each of these technologies, so let's say for energy systems, we'll give you the tools necessary to evaluate those technologies relative to a particular end use. Then I'll ask you to do that analysis relative to a case study and then produce an engineering report. I'll also ask you to conduct a group project. We'll do a fair amount of work the week before so that we can be fully prepared. And then you'll have a decent amount due after we return, with one assignment for each course due during the trip. Is how it'll break out. Let's see, is there any other topic we need to cover?
I think that's good. I'm gonna probably come back around to you, but that sounds great for now. Okay. Alrighty. So now I'm going to go back and share my screen again. And I'm going to ask for Dr. Squires to share a little more. I know that you shared a little bit about your courses a little earlier on, but maybe go into a little bit of depth of some of the like the locations that you're going to visit and some of the things that you did when you went, a few years ago, and what types of things y'all experienced while going to some of those locations.
Yeah, I overshared in the first round, so I'll keep the general introduction brief. But
we're good.
Both courses are sort of advanced level English courses, and both of them are focused more on cultural studies than just literature in particular. So we'll be trying to think critically about the kind of culture that we're inhabiting in London for a brief time, and think critically about the kinds of institutions that manage and preserve our cultural legacies and the kinds of things that we're going to be looking at in those museums. So for the museums and libraries, part of what we're going to do before we even leave Lafayette is go visit the Hilliard, and they're going to help us look at museums differently and think about them more critically, like all the preparatory work that goes into staging an exhibit, why they light in certain ways that they do, why they hang pictures or stage artwork in certain ways, and what that means for the user experience or the patron experience. With libraries, we're going to be thinking about who's been allowed in them historically. So we'll read some work by Virginia Woolf before we leave, where she talks about not being allowed into some of the great libraries of England, and what that means for her as a woman writer, and how that meant she had to conduct her work, and how that might have been different if she'd been allowed to access those institutions. So those are some of the questions we'll be looking at in museums and libraries in London before we go. Even for the drama or the drama class or the performance class, we'll be looking, before we leave, we'll read a couple plays. We'll watch those plays as well, and we'll talk about the experience of watching on film or screen, and then seeing it live as well. And then we'll also try to expand what it means to think about performance, to ask questions about whether it's just people who are on stage who are performing, or whether performance is something that we are always engaged in, that we're learning to do all the time. Whether there's how to perform gender roles, or how it's to perform certain kinds of professional roles, how to perform as a student. All of those will kind of come into the conversation as we prepare to go. The only two, the main sort of written assignments you'll have before leaving for the two courses will be a couple of responses for each course. So just reading responses to make sure that you have processed some of that information and gotten a good handle on the ideas that we'll be exploring when we're there. And then when we're in London, we'll do discussions. So a lot like Dr. Raj was saying, we'll meet usually for breakfast around 9. It's at the hotel. We'll try to get to our first site location by 10:30 a.m., spend the morning at one place. So maybe we'll walk over to the British Museum, for instance, or up to the Wellcome Library. Both are in the neighborhood where we'll be staying. That will take maybe 2 hours, and then we'll break for lunch, recuperate a little bit, and meet someplace for the afternoon. Maybe it'll be the Tate Modern Museum, or maybe we'll catch an afternoon show at the Globe Theater, for instance. And then, we'll at 4:35, we'll kind of wrap up with a reflective discussion of the day, talk about plans for the next day, and then usually that's it, so that people have time to go explore. There are, because of some of the theatrical performances we'll look at, there are some evenings that will be involved. So for instance, when we do West End Theater, that's going to definitely be after dinner. If we do the Fringe Fest Theater, that's going to be after dinner as well. So in those cases, I'll try to give you the morning or the afternoon off, so that you have time again to maybe see another museum that wouldn't be open in the evening that we're not doing as a class, but that you might want to see yourself. And I've got great ideas for all those kinds of places that you can go. So last time in 2019, everybody in the class wanted to see Buckingham Palace. So for instance, it wasn't part of our scheduled curriculum, but we walked over to Buckingham Palace together just to see how the royals live. One time we stopped for famous donuts at St. John's Bakery. So we did some fun stuff as well, beyond what was just on the course. And then of course, there's free time, as Dr. Roch was saying. in the evenings, but also there should be at least one free weekend, right, where you can travel. And I'll have ideas for continuing sort of the course theme if you want to go see other museums in the area, or you do want to do other theater. Last time there were a contingent of students who really loved West End theater, so they went and saw as many shows as they could. So I can help you set that stuff up as well. Or you can get a quick train over to Paris, and you can spend a night in Paris. That's totally doable from London because it's a short train ride over.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Squires. I appreciate that. Okay, I'm going to go back to sharing my screen again. Okay, all righty. Okay. I want to do from the beginning. Oh, well, I may have to go that route. You'll notice I'm not tech savvy, but that's okay. I make it work. Okay, so as I mentioned earlier, Dr. Bradford was unable to be with us during this recorded session, but I do want to share with you his courses that he will be teaching. When I do meet with him, he's going to share a little more information about his courses, but here you can see that he is going to be teaching 2 music courses, 481 and 470, that are also being cross-listed with some honors, humanities, and English courses. But I'm going to allow him to share that with you at a later time. So at this time, I'd like to ask for Dr. Bro from our psychology department to share a little bit about the courses that she's offering for our England program. Dr. Bro?
Thank you. So yes, the 2 courses I'm teaching are London on My Mind, and I have subtitled that Cognition Through a Cross-Cultural Lens. So hopefully that gives you some vague idea of what we'll be doing. And then of course, my Death and Dying class, which I've subtitled A British Perspective. So the London on My Mind course is focused on all the things that happen inside of our heads, including how we see things, how we hear things, how we taste things, how we make decisions about things. That's the cognitive part of the course. But we will be coming at these experiences through the lens of different cultures. And of course, that's the cross-cultural psychology part of the course. Different sites that we will likely see as part of this course and incorporate into the course, the Tate Britain Museum, so art and, of course, thinking about our perception, our visual perception and how we see things. St. Paul's Cathedral, the Bethlehem Museum of the Mind, the Wellcome Collection, which was mentioned earlier. It's a museum focused on connecting science, medicine, life, and art, and typically has relevant topics for this course. And Windsor Castle is included in there. So all different ways we will incorporate those places. And for the Death and Dying course, so for many Americans, a topic like this makes them a little anxious. That's normal in our culture. However, it's not actually the norm in all cultures. So we're going to explore the topic of death and dying, mostly from a British cultural perspective. And we're going to take sort of a historical to modern perspective. So I think I heard that in what Dr. Rausch was saying in engineering, and we're sort of doing a similar thing in this course. The sites for this course, Highgate Cemetery, Westminster Abbey, the Sigmund Freud Museum, and I always love to incorporate tours. And so Harry Potter is a series that actually talks a lot about death and dying, and thinking, possibly a tour there. Or when we went in 2019, we did a Jack the Ripper tour. So looking at things like, serial murder and why people are so interested in things like that, when normally we don't want to talk about the topic. So a typical day would involve typically a morning activity, a break for lunch, an afternoon activity, ending in time for dinner. So very much like what Dr. Rausch was talking about. Each activity involves actively engaging with the location that we're at. So you're, and ultimately everything's sort of tied to a writing assignment. So for example, you might have a writing assignment about memorialization. One morning, we might go to Westminster Abbey, and I might ask you to gather information about the Abbey, identify a particular memorial that sort of resonates or speaks to you in some way, and consider how you want to be memorialized. We would then end our time at the Abbey with a class discussion. Then we would break for lunch, meet at a designated time and location for our next activity. And on this day, we might tour the Tate Britain Museum with a focus on the sensation and perception of light. And we would also think about art as a cultural artifact and what can it tell us about differences or similarities between cultures. So again, we would end our time at the Tate Britain with a class discussion, and class discussions would typically occur where we're at, so our current location, or I've also done public parks near the location if the location's not a good one for small group discussions. Recommendations I would make for students: be prepared to be out for the whole day and to walk quite a bit. Make sure you bring comfortable walking shoes, dress to be respectful of the culture, dress to be prepared for changing temperatures and or rain. And you'll always want to be prepared, at least for my classes, to take notes and to take photographs.
Oh, are you freezing up? Are you done?
I might have frozen up,
I
but
think you froze up, yeah. No
but
big
I was
deal.
at the end of what I had prepared.
Okay. All righty. Is that it, Dr. Golden? That's it? Okay. Awesome. All right. Well, what I'm going to do now is I will ask that Mr. Tanzel share with us a little bit of information about his visual arts courses that he's planning on teaching. Mr. Tanzel?
So the two courses I'll be offering, first will be Doodling is Much More Than a Fruitless Endeavor, and Art in London, The Mainstream and the Outsider. Now with the doodling aspect, I'm hoping, since we're going to have kind of a universal, not only in art culture of our students that are going to be there, to make it not seem that I'm making everyone draw in the traditional sense, but your doodling can be photography, it can be writing, it can be any type of rubbings, anything that you feel like you can do to kind of explore and make a memory essentially out of what London has to offer. Now, I think we're going to be pushing an art perspective with it, that a lot of times doodling is the forming of an idea, but also I'm going to be showing students around London. It's going to be part of your experience. And I think if we're going to be exploring places such as the British Museum, Tower of London, Museum Jack the Ripper, that you either doodle about what you see in front of you, or you're doodling about the things that are behind some of those ideas. Say with Jack the Ripper, of course, since there's going to be some crossover talking about serial murder in some of our other classes. I think it's a good aspect to have kind of another perspective. So there is a little grim aspect to the doodling, because we'll be also going to the London dungeons and anything else that I can find that kind of features that. But I think since doodling is mostly considered, sketching and drawing, when we start off before we go to England, I will be discussing other people who have had doodling as a part of their existence. So say, for example, like Leonardo da Vinci, who was also an artist, but he was an engineer, he was a writer, he's the Renaissance man talking about everything. So his books were filled with ideas. And even though this isn't necessarily London, it's good to set up the students kind of with this multiverse of what they can be doing with doodling, so to say. And I want to cater to each student and find out what they're willing to possibly do. If they want to explore drawing, I'll be covering the type of materials that you should be bringing with you, say sketchbooks, small little sketchbooks, whatever you want to bring with you. Now, I think there's also the modern aspect that a lot of this is being done on drawing tablets and such, so that the students have that type of material prepared for them. You can totally sketch digitally as well. But we'll also be covering the traditional aspects of that. monuments, other places. So I think it's a little bit lighthearted in a sense that we're going to be experiencing the city and you're going to be trying to document your experiences and your thoughts in some type of way while you're there. So it is extremely open-ended, and I find I teach this way anyways, that I try to diversify. It'll be a smaller group of students where I can kind of explore what they're into and try to cater our visits to things like that. Now, besides just visiting the standard places, museums, I am going to be trying to do trips. At least one, I know England's a shorter program, but going off to Stonehenge or another ancient type of location that we possibly can. I also want to encourage, not that everyone wants to think that they're in class all the time, but if we're eating breakfast together, as I hope we plan the day, and lunch, we can doodle our lunch. We can kind of draw the culture, experience the culture in that way. That seems like an art thing a lot, but I have a lot of friends who draw food and take photographs of food, and I think that's kind of a nice way to kind of experience the culture as well. And I'm hoping that there might be some crossover interests between some of the other courses, especially theater and everything, since that's part of the arts that I can talk about as well. The second course, Art in London, the Mainstream and Outsider. First, before we leave, I'll be describing in a sense what the difference between the mainstream artists, which most people would be experiencing in museums, and people that have made a name for themselves, and the outsider artists who pretty much can be well established, but does not come from that academic background possibly. They've kind of practiced on the outside, and we will be covering our traditional artists as well. So if we talk about John Constable, William Blake, and JMW Turner as such, we have also our mid-level artists that will be kind of covering, Francis Bacon, David Hockney. But then also, when you think about someone who's very famous, is Banksy, the graffiti artist, who still very much though practices almost in that outsider perspective, that people want his artwork in museums, but he's very much on the street still. And most of what you see is going to be through photographing. So I do also think there's going to be some crossover between both courses, in a sense that I plan on talking about Turner, even though we're going to be talking about him as a mainstream artist. We'll be covering the fact that he drew and doodled all over London constantly on the Thames and other things, and based off of some of his paintings. And so this might be a little bit more focused on art, and the fact that probably be leaning a little bit more towards art history. So we'll be a little bit more lecture based while I'll be teaching the students about the artists, and then we'll go see what they painted, and then also go to the areas where they lived, where they experienced life as much as we can. I hope I covered everything. Have I?
You did great. Thank you, Mr.
Thank you.
Tansel. So
Thank
what I'm going to do now, I know that some of our faculty have already covered a little bit of this in that initial question that I asked, but I want to make sure that the session is not super long for students to view it. So maybe just take like a couple minutes for each of the faculty members to share with our students about, what will the assignments be like? What will grading be like? How should they be prepared, to earn the credits? I guess you could say. So if each of you could take a couple of minutes just to maybe share that. Let's start with Dr. Bro. And I know some of you have covered some of that, but just if there's anything else you want to reiterate about it.
Yeah, thank you. So class meetings will typically take place during the day. We would only meet at night if we were scheduled to see like a live performance. So I know some people have talked about that, and that's sort of the standard for these classes. I like having one weekend with scheduled activities and one weekend that was open. So if we could do that again, I have a preference for that. Both of my courses have the same grading structure. So 10% on students' conduct and participation. So are you showing up on time? Are you participating? If we have a guide, are you asking them questions that pull from the materials that we've been covering? Those sort of things. 20% on contributions to group discussions. So in those small group discussions. I will be coming around and observing, and 90% on completion of activity assignments, which are the written components that I sort of mentioned previously, where you're submitting something to me that I can see your thoughts and ideas, and you're pulling everything together. And yeah, they're just designed to encourage you to think critically about the information that you've been presented with in the course materials, in the course experiences. So just to get a sense of what that's like. And then the week we have here in Lafayette will be building the foundation of knowledge that we'll use throughout our time in England. So, but some practice in terms of like the other assignments that you'll experience. So we'll get some practice on those. And yeah, when we get to England, we'll focus more on active learning experiences and group discussions.
Awesome. Thank you, Dr. Bro. I apologize because I think there was some shorting out, but I think they got the gist of what was needed. So
Okay,
cool.
perfect. Thank you.
Awesome. Okay, Dr. Roush, if you wouldn't mind sharing a little bit about what should students expect in reference to grading assignments, and how should they be prepared, because of the fact this is different than being on a normal campus in a classroom here.
Sure, I appreciate it. So similar to what Dr. Bro is mentioning, the two classes will have a very similar structure in terms of actual grading. They're going to be more weighted toward activities and the that we are interacting with, and the resultant work to do as a result of that. So homework, case studies, those kinds of assignments. Each course will have one examination, which will be electronic. And that'll cover a lot of conceptual types of things and maybe a small amount of quantitative analysis. And then we'll each have a final project that'll be kind of like constructing an engineering report. So I kind of like to think of it as you have a client whom you are employed by. You're out in the world working for your consulting firm, and your client has hired you, and your major work product will be a report. So that's one thing that stands out with the engineering profession, is your work product is report. So I'm asking you to do that, to construct a technical report. We will utilize the week on campus to build some foundational material, similar to how Dr. Bro mentioned, and we will have probably a third of the homework activity produced during that time. And then we'll probably have a little more than that ends up not being turned in until we return, including a final project. You will have a few assignments to complete while we are in London, just because the material will be more fresh, and it'll give you a chance to really work together with your classmates. I forgot where I was going, I'm sorry.
Been there, done that.
All right. So we will try to utilize the areas that we visit as much as possible, not just for kind of conceptual ideas, but actually integrate them into the coursework. So as an example, in 2019, we went to Stonehenge. Stonehenge was an instrument constructed by the ancient peoples there for several things. One of the biggest things, it was utilized for keeping time in terms of the time of the year. But we actually took some solar energy measurements at Stonehenge and utilized that for some analysis we did later. We did a similar thing at a pump station in Cambridge. And so we will try to incorporate what we're doing into some of the assignments we have. You will be asked to utilize the tools you're given, and it may be simulation tools, and maybe purely analytical, in order to conduct some analysis. So like I always like to say, it's not really engineering unless you can put a number on it, right? So you will have to do some of that work. A lot of the work is interactive with your peers, and in particular, you'll be asked to produce a group project on the sustainability side, where we'll ask you to propose a sustainability project as if it were going to be incorporated at UL. And so there is our Office of Sustainability has a mechanism for doing this that they want real projects, and we're going to ask you to act as if you were presenting one of those ideas. And so things that can be really tied to real world as well as incorporating all the ideas of the course.
Awesome. Thank you, Dr. Roush. Dr. Squires, if you'd like to share a little bit more about what they should expect.
Yeah, so we'll use the first week in Lafayette to get acquainted with some reading materials and some of the things we're going to be seeing and talking about in London. So to do that, there'll be 2 writing responses or reading responses, but written work that you'll submit, 2 for each class, so a total of 4 over that week. That is pretty informal writing. The formal writing will come towards the end after we're back from London. So when you're in London, you'll be taking notes and doing your daily journal, taking photographs where you're allowed to do that, hopefully making video of some of the street performances that we see, for instance. And then we'll create 2 exhibits, 1 for each class. And so for the modern drama, the public and its performance class, we're going to use a platform called Scalar, which handles media really well. So it's just a good opportunity to write about images and video that you've taken, and to analyze it for some theme that you're interested in, that you've picked up on while you're in London. So we'll talk about that, of course, throughout the 2 weeks that we're there, and come up with ideas and brainstorm ideas collaboratively. And that Scalar project, everybody will contribute to it, but it'll be a class-wide project. So it'll be collaborative in nature, even though you'll be working on your contribution on your own once we're back in Lafayette, or once we're out of London. So I don't want you in London holed up writing in your hotel room, of course. The other platform, the other exhibit we'll create is on Omeka, and this will give you an opportunity to learn some of the curatorial terms and strategies and standards that librarians and museum curators use to manage work and to classify work. So you'll actually be creating, I'm going to use a metaphor that's a little bit out of my depth, but it's a little bit like fantasy football. And I've never played, so I don't exactly know how it works, but you kind of like pick a team member from one, or like a player from one team and a player from another team, and you create a team that is not a real team in the NFL. We're going to do something similar with museum materials. So we'll take a painting that's in maybe the Tate, and then maybe a photograph that's in the Tate Modern, right? So these are 2 different museums, but you can take exhibit materials from all the different places that we go to create a gallery exhibit of your own that, again, will trace some theme that we've been talking about in the course. And so you'll write about how you've curated that. A lot of that will also involve the metadata standards that librarians and curators use. So how are you managing the citations? So we do this when we write research papers, but it's a little bit different when we're talking about artwork and doing it in a digital context. So those are 2 exhibits will meet the formal writing that you do for the courses. And we'll actually practice doing some of that with the platforms, because I don't expect you to have used those before, but I'll provide them, they're free to use, and I'll teach you how to use them before we go to London.
Awesome. Thank you, Dr. Squires. And so Mr. Tanzel, if you could share with them a little bit about what they should expect regarding assignments, grading, and what will be expected of them.
Okay, so with the doodling course, essentially the ultimate culmination of everything will be a travel journal of some sort. It's going to be a documentation of the trip. So to call it a travel journal, if someone's photographing or doing something digital, maybe an animation or something like that, I'm trying to open the world of what type of doodling, I just don't want to put the pressure on anyone necessarily about having to feel like the drawing is an aspect necessarily. It's just more capturing the idea. I think that's going to be more important to me. So in a sense, so that'll be the culmination. Before we leave, we will be reviewing, as I said before, doodles of famous artists, and introducing the students to techniques that can be formulated for doodling. So I'll be covering tools such as pencils. Is it going to be some type of paint? We'll cover digital, we'll cover other things as well, and try to find that one medium that the student's comfortable with, and set up how they're going to approach documenting their travels and experiences. So when we come back, there will actually be a little bit more like an art term. It's going to be a critique of the whole entire project. So it'll be a culminated work that's in the end, but Critiques come off sometimes as being harsh. I like them being more open and being a discussion of how they documented their work. But unlike maybe some other classes, there's going to be heavy active participation every day. I need to be sure that students are documenting, and it needs to be in process, not something that you think and review. And then you can, of course, go back home and do it later. That's a whole other aspect of that as well. But so the travel journal for that course will be the main thing that we kind of go over, but there will be different formats that students can present it in. For the other course of the mainstream and the other artists, the main thing that they'll be required to submit is a PowerPoint presentation, report, or a paper, and the outline of how and what that's supposed to be will be determined, as in that first week before we go. Also, I'm sorry, for both courses, the honor students will be required to write an additional paper to the assignment, which it'll be a little bit more individualized with what I'm going to try to cater to the students' interests if possible, as I always do. So pre-departure, of course, will be exposing and introducing the students to the artists through lectures, videos, and books, to basically get an understanding of mainstream art. And then also they're going to be learning about the difference between the mainstream and outsider artists, mostly in kind of a world perspective. And then we're going to focus on London as well. So this one will be a little bit more tangible in a sense. It will be like a lecture course, and the interaction, of course, will be us going to the museums and people being responsible and showing up to all these events, because they're going to be catered and tied directly into what you're going to be presenting about. So the research can be focused on a movement. It can be focused on one single artist. It can be focused on an area where other artists have worked. There's kind of many different perspectives to approach with it, but it is closer to an art history course, I would say. But I always want students to document and challenge the way they do with their ideas. So some drawing and other types of formats can be also included in their PowerPoints as well.
Awesome. Thank you, Mr. Tansel. I appreciate that. So I'm going to go back to sharing my screen again and just kind of finalize our presentation with just a few shots from some Raging Cajuns in London on the London Eye. Here's a map. If you want to, you can always still pause this recording and look over it a little bit, but I'm going to keep moving forward. More photographs of some of our students. Here's Cassie Richard. She was one of our past graduate assistants. Actually, she's one who has helped us with our PowerPoints in a video that I'm going to share with y'all in just a minute. I did share with y'all earlier that these are faculty-led programs, but there are other opportunities for our students. Should you decide that faculty-led programs are not for you, we do have field experiences where faculty will take students on an excursion for 10 to 20 days, and it's incorporated into a class that's here on the campus. Students can also participate in programs where you go for, excuse me, a semester or a year abroad. And then we've recently been more involved with internships abroad as well. These are opportunities for you. Contact my office should you want additional information, because this would be more one-on-one communication with the student and our office. We are going to have student panel discussions as we did last year. They're going to probably be virtual, where I'm going to have our student alumni that are going to participate in a session similar to this and share with you their experiences, and you can ask them questions about things that you might want to know about. Those student discussions will probably be live. I'm going to try to go for that. It's going to be virtual, but live, but then we're probably going to record them so that students can look at it at their leisure as well. But this is something that I am planning on doing, and that information will be posted on the website in the weeks or months to come. Here, I don't think you can click on it, but there is a video on YouTube where I mentioned earlier that Cassie, our graduate assistant, and another one, Peter Newton, had prepared it for us. And it's a wonderful video. And I will be posting the link on our website so that you can view it. And it just shares the experiences of our students on our different programs. So I encourage you to look at that as well. And like I said, I'll make sure that it's identifiable on our website. And then this is my contact information here. I am located in the student union, and my phone number is located there. You can schedule a virtual appointment with me as well. We are back in the office full time, but right now we're still limiting the, students not coming directly into the offices, but we are available if students should need. The one thing I just want to finalize for today, we are going to have meetings in the spring, orientations for our students to help you with your preparations prior to departure. And we're going to cover various things. The faculty will be involved with these orientation sessions just to help you with your preparations in reference to packing, currency, the currency exchanges, debit, credit cards, laundry, the whole realm of things. And that a lot of that information is going to be covered in these orientation sessions in the spring. But I do need to share that naturally the topic of COVID-19 is still upon us, here. We were so saddened that in the summers of 2020 and 2021, there was a need for us to cancel our programs because of COVID-19. At this time, truthfully, I don't have that ideal perfect answer for you, but we are going to move forward and pray and hope that our programs will go in the summer of 2022. We are going to recruit, we're going to advertise, and we're going to, do everything that we normally do for our programs to go. But naturally, we're going to always have to keep COVID-19 in the backs of our minds. And we will have meetings about it, of course. I'll be communicating with the faculty. We're going to be following in accordance to university policies in reference to COVID-19, travel abroad, that type of thing, in accordance with CDC regulations as well. But for now, we are planning to go full speed ahead for the summer of 2022. We hope that it works out well, but naturally those updates will be constantly made available to our students who are interested. So at this time, I'd like to invite any of our faculty that if y'all have any final words I would like to share or anything along those lines. I apologize to the students because this may be a little longer than what you want to listen to, but you know what? It was beneficial. Lots and lots of really valuable information for you. So anything else the faculty would like to share? Anything else? Okay. Well, to our faculty, thank you from the bottom of my heart that you spent time with me today to do this. I really appreciate it. And I will be getting all of this information on our website in the future. And to our students, I hope that you get to experience studying abroad. Take your education further. Bye, everyone.
Bye, all.
Thank you.
Bye.